Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Damascus Radio, and it's time for news for tonight, read by Khaled Sakhdani and Basim Bagdash. The Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has said in a statement that Syria welcomes what Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov announced at the Russian Federation Council on October the 10th on the necessity of having a mechanism of direct security communication between Syria and Turkey. The ministry pointed out that Syria discussed with the Russian ambassador in Damascus its readiness to establish a joint Syrian-Turkish security committee to undertake finding a mechanism to control the security situation on both sides of the border in the framework of respecting the national sovereignty of the two countries. In Tehran, member of the Iranian Leadership Council, Kazem Siddiqui, has expressed regret at Turkey's stand towards the events in Syria, pointing out that the latest developments at the Syrian-Turkish borders show that Turkey is following the Western states and the NATO to attack an Islamic State opposed to Israel. Siddiqui said that Turkey should consolidate the national unity in Syria rather than supporting the armed opposition, voicing the Turkish people's rejection of the Turkish government's policy, which comes out loud and clear through the demonstrations. Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri Maliki has stressed the need to solve the crisis in Syria through peaceful means. Al-Maliki's remarks came after his meeting with Senate President of the Parliament of the Czech Republic, Milan Stek, in Prague. Al-Maliki stressed that no weapons are being smuggled to Syria via Iraqi lands, calling on the countries which are providing weapons to the armed terrorist groups to stop arming these groups and to search for positive solutions instead. On another issue, spokesman for the Iraqi Prime Minister Ali Dabbagh said that Baghdad will purchase fighter jets from the Czech Republic with estimated value of about $1 billion. The agreement came after the meeting of the Czech Minister of Defense, Alexander Vondra, with his Iraqi counterpart, Saadun Ad-Dulaimi. Khalid?
Thank you, Basim. During their work to clear the Ghouta area in Damascus's countryside from the terrorists, the armed forces on Thursday rescued the citizen William Al-Hafian, who had been abducted by terrorists, and they imprisoned him and tortured him for 7 days. As they were carrying out the operations against the terrorist groups who terrorized the towns of Mleha, Zabdin, and Deir al-Asafir in addition to others, the armed forces found Al-Hafian in a house in the Mleha area surrounded by broken furniture, torture devices, and chains which left marks on his ankles. Al-Hafian said that he was led to a farm at gunpoint where he was tortured, and later the terrorists called his brother and asked for a ransom and for him to deliver one of the members of the Syrian army to them for exchange for William's liberty. But his brother refused to negotiate with the terrorists. He noted that some of the terrorists who tortured him were not Syrians, and he learned this from their accents and dialects, adding that the terrorists seemed to panic when the Syrian army began entering into the Ghouta area, and they fled, allowing him to cry out for help, which alerted the army of his whereabouts. As William returns to his wife and 3 children, the armed forces are continuing to clear the rest of the Ghouta area from the terrorists. In related news, in Qudsiya, which is also in Damascus's countryside, the security forces discovered a hideout for the terrorist groups. Various types of weapons were confiscated, including machine guns, ammunition, binoculars, and explosives to target the Syrian army and members of the civilians. Meanwhile, a factory for manufacturing explosive devices by terrorists detonated last night in the basement of a building in the Yarmouk camp. The explosion led to the collapse of the 4-story building and the death of some of the inhabitants and passengers and the wounding of others. The explosion also caused huge material damages to the nearby buildings. The building lies near the Lubia Street, which is one of the most crowded markets in the Yarmouk camp area. In Aleppo, the army units killed scores of mercenaries and terrorists, and they confiscated their weapons in Karm al-Jabal area. Another army unit targeted an armed vehicle for terrorists, killing many of them near the Bab al-Hadid, Bustan al-Basha, and the Sport Institute. Also, in the city's countryside, 8 cars carrying weapons and ammunition for terrorists were destroyed. The armed forces also carried out a qualitative operation in the Harsho, Kafar Dail, Khan el-Asal, Maskana, and El Artab area, killing a number of terrorists, including the Saudi national Yahya al-Qaroush, and destroying a number of vehicles for the terrorists. Back to you, Basim.
Thank you, Khalid. In Homs countryside, a unit of our armed forces carried out a qualitative operation, destroyed 2 cars, and killed all terrorists in them. It also killed scores of terrorists in Tel Dou. A source in the province said that another unit clashed with an armed terrorist group that attacked the citizens and cut off roads in Tel Kalakh city in Homs countryside, inflicting heavy losses among them. In Hama Governorate, a unit from the Syrian Arab Army destroyed a Dushka-equipped car, killing the terrorists who were inside it at El Tremse in Mharde countryside. The Syrian Arab Army unit also killed and injured members from one of the most dangerous armed terrorist groups that accompanied the car. Meanwhile, engineering units dismantled an explosive device made of a metal cylinder filled with 30 kilograms of explosive materials. The device was planted by an armed terrorist group on the side of the main road in Knezer city in Hama countryside to target the passing-by cars. In a Slaybe neighborhood in Latakia, the competent authorities discovered a weapon cache upon storming a hideout used by an armed terrorist group and seized RPG launchers, rifles, pistols, various kinds of ammunition, grenades, electronic equipment, communication equipment, remote control equipment, and materials used in making explosive devices. And in Deir ez-Zor province, a unit of our armed forces killed a number of terrorists near Al-Rawda Mosque in a Jbeli neighborhood. Among them were Bashar Jnaid, a leader of one of the terrorist groups, and the terrorist Ahmed Hussein al-Alaw. A source in the province said that another unit of our armed forces destroyed a car equipped with Dushka machine gun at Al-Umman neighborhood, in addition to destroying a pickup car that was carrying a number of terrorists. In another qualitative operation, our armed forces killed a number of terrorists and wounded others near Huwaid Agency in Sheikh Yassin. Minister of State for National Reconciliation Affairs Dr. Ali Haidar said that the project that was launched in Al-Haffah city to return the families who fled their homes due to armed terrorist attacks is underway and has not stopped, indicating that the experience is being evaluated through studying small details hindering the implementation of the project on the ground. In a statement to journalists following his meeting with the Committee for Bringing Back the Displaced and Distribute Aid to Families in Latakia, Haidar said, "The project which was carried out in Al-Haffah city is a central project, and stopping it does not mean that it is cancelled, but it means starting anew somewhere else. We, at the State Ministry for National Reconciliation Affairs, are interested in making the project a success as a message to the Syrians that security and stability can be restored." He added that what has been achieved in Al-Haffah will be popularized in the provinces on the economic, service, and security levels, indicating that the services and donations will be offered to all areas in the province without exception. Minister Haidar said that his visit to Latakia comes in the frame of his continual field visits to the provinces. Back to you, Khalid.
Thank you, Basim. The Syrian community in Jordan and the Jordanian popular and youth forces have stressed their support to Syria in the face of the global war waged against it. The remarks came during the celebrations marking the 39th anniversary of the October Liberation War held in front of the Syrian embassy in Amman. The participants chanted slogans stressing their faith in the Syrian leadership and its ability to overcome the current crisis. The freed Syrian prisoners, Sadq al-Maqd, and the freed Palestinian prisoner, Sabrin Abu Amara, communicated with the participants, and they hailed the occasion as a bright point in the modern Arab history, expressing their unlimited support for the Syrian people, leadership, and army in the face of the plots targeting the Syrian people and the Arab nation. The Turkish Sol Harbor website stressed that the Syrian-Turkish borders have become an area for for armed terrorist groups and foreign spies with the support of the Justice and Development AKP government, which ignores the infiltration of terrorist gunmen into Syria across the borders. The website stressed that there is evidence that the AKP government is ignoring the terrorist infiltration attempts into Syria across the Turkish borders since the beginning of the events. It added that the AKP government turned its borders with Syria into a center for those who call themselves the armed opposition members, foreign spies, and other various groups. The website has supported its statements with evidence by an interview made with the armed gunmen by the CNN Turk television, and they were with the mercenary terrorist groups which called themselves the Free Syrian Army on the border towns, as one of the gunmen stressed that he is going across the borders in the next few minutes to participate in the armed operations in Syria. It also cited another violation committed by the governor of the Kalas city, Yusuf Abadis, and the head of the Gaziantep Tel municipality, who crossed into the borders and met with the armed terrorists and with the gunmen. Back to you, Bassem.
Thank you very much, Khalid. Lebanese Minister for Administrative Development, Mohammed Fneish, has stressed the Lebanese resistance's right to possess means of deterring the Israeli enemy, which never stopped violating the Lebanese sovereignty. In a word, Fneish said, it is the resistance's right and duty to possess what deters the Israeli enemy, as that would enhance its deterrent system and consolidates the importance of having a continuous balance of deterrence with this enemy. Fneish added, saying, we have the full right to repel the violation of our sovereignty and to possess the weapon that achieves this goal. The Egyptian parties, movement, and powers taking part in the Holding Morsi Accountable demonstration have held the Egyptian president and the Muslim Brotherhood movement responsible for the incidents that took place in Tahrir Square in Cairo yesterday, which resulted in the injury of 10 people. In a joint statement, both the Constitution and Popular Trend parties have condemned the attack launched by the Muslim Brotherhood members on the peaceful demonstrators, describing them as barbaric. The two parties held the Muslim Brotherhood movement fully responsible for yesterday's events. And now over to the final item with my colleague Khalid.
Thank you, Bassem. The Prime Minister, Dr. Wael Halaqi, has inaugurated the Basel Hospital for Cardiology and Heart Surgeries and the Education Faculty at the Tishreen University in Latakia with a total cost that exceeded 2 billion Syrian pounds.
The end of our news for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Damascus Radio presents News and Views.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The Turkish government's bet has been lost on the armed terrorist groups for toppling the Syrian regime as well as for fulfilling Erdogan's dream of recovering the glories of the Ottoman Empire. Afterwards, the government of the Development and Justice Party started to change their role of engagement besides furnishing the circumstances required to instigate an armed conflict between the two states. The outlines of this change has started to loom in the horizon during the past week when a mortar shell landed on a Turkish border village, which appeared later that it was launched from a mortar cannon that was gifted by the Turkish intelligence to the terrorist mercenaries in Syria. This was reported by the Turkish Yard paper. The fresh Turkish behavior is an extra sign of the hostile policy adopted by Erdogan's government. It confirms that Erdogan's government is carrying on with its aggressive project against Syria, and it seeks producing a pretext through unleashing arbitrary accusations in a bid to turn the situation into a war between the two countries, in addition to settling the grounds for summoning the foreign intervention into Syria to be led by the NATO. Syrian Helport has adhered to the friendship ties linking the two peoples together, the Syrian and the Turks. It has also striven to contain the situation and exercised the highest level of self-restraint for the sake of preying the region at destructive war which serves no one but the interests and the projects of the West and its allies. Unfortunately, such as impulsive adventure shall have negative repercussions in the Middle East in general and on the Turkish society in particular. Apparently, Syria is aware of the grave consequences, so the war does not pour in its interest, while Turkey is not aware of them or attempts to ignore them. In this case, it's more dangerous.
That was news and views from Damascus Radio. Damascus Radio presents Syrian Local Press Review.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The papers published today gave prominence to the following headlines and news items. Russia renews demanding Turkey explain the procedures of holding the Syrian passenger plane, affirming that the plane did not have any sort of weapon on board. Russia says that the UN Security Council should move against terrorism in Syria as the opposition adopts terrorism as a main method. 55 Dushka-equipped cars are completely destroyed, along with 23 anti-aircraft of cars and 14 cars loaded with weapons. On the other hand, tens of terrorists are killed in Aleppo, Homs, Hama, and Deraa. Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri Maliki discusses with members of the Czech Senate in the Czech capital Prague several international issues of mutual concern, including solving the Syrian crisis peacefully. He said that the states which arm the terrorists should search for positive solutions. Efforts continue for the return of the displaced to their homes. Minister of State for National Reconciliation Affairs Ali Haidar underlines that the project of relocating the displaced of Al-Hafa is still on. Al-Thawra daily exposes in its front page editorial the lines that are being fabricated on the Syrian crisis. Turkish Premier Erdogan is lying to the Turks as his foreign minister also lies to him. Both are lying to the whole world. French President Hollande is lying to the French, while Obama's administration is lying to the Americans. It may be taken for granted that the West was subject to the hoax and that the Europeans were simply preying the Turks' lying ambush as well as the Gulf promises. However, no one can't believe that the Turkish is going to continue being heard from now on. Like what is required from the Arab people, the Turkish people is also required to adopt a clear stand in which it declares its rejection of that lying and those liars. Although their fabrications and those lies will never be ceased, the lying among each other seems to be sustainable. The paper concludes.
That was a review of the Syrian local press issued in Damascus this morning.
Damascus Radio presents Welcome to Syria. A weekly program prepared and presented by Rashid Haydar. Directed by Suhail Khouri. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to this new edition of Welcome to Syria. Still in the city of Jibla, ladies and gentlemen, the city also includes a number of important archaeological hills, such as Tel Siano, where archaeological excavations have indicated the deeply rooted history and great civilizations the city saw over different periods of history. In Jibla, there is a beautiful citadel which was built at the Roman era. The citadel has played a crucial role in the Syrian coast during different wars. The citadel was renovated and fortified several times due to its strategic position. The city also includes an important mosque called Sultan Ibrahim. It is distinguished in Jibla as it is considered the oldest in Jibla. The writings inscribed on the mosque's wall date back to 1025 AD. The mosque is characterized by its rectangular shape and decorations. The vegetal and animal decorations inscribed on the mosque show the prodigious skill of the Arab Muslim architecture. The architectural design in Jibla is distinguished for its diversity and ornaments. The city includes a number of old souks that reflect the commercial importance of the city. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll be listening to Welcome to Syria. A weekly program prepared and presented by Rashid Haydar and directed by Suhail Khouri.
Radio Damascus presents A Call for Justice.
Turkish writer Shahin Marjo has criticized Turkish Prime Minister, head of the Justice and Development Party, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, for allowing terrorists to infiltrate into Syrian territories to commit their crimes according to US directives, thus greatly jeopardizing Turkish national security. The writer pointed out in an article published in Edinlik Daily and on Ulusal Bakish website that legal action must be taken against Erdogan in the Supreme Court because he executes US directives to push the country to the verge of war with a neighboring state. The writer held Erdogan responsible for the killing of the 5 Turkish citizens in Ekçakla village, pointing out that the leader of the Justice and Development Party and his companions had not been able to analyze and interpret political events properly, either because of their ignorance of foreign policy or of their attempt to cover up their failure at the internal level through an adventure in foreign policy. The writer said Erdogan's government has created animosity with a neighboring state which will live next to Turkey forever. We have no more friends but Al-Qaeda organization, Taliban and the Muslim Brotherhood, he added. Regarding the Syrian refugees in Turkey, the writer said if Erdogan had really wanted to help those refugees humanitarianly, as he alleged, he would have set up camps for them inside Turkey, not along the borders, pointing out that those camps were set up to serve as a terrorist base used by the terrorist groups, including non-Syrian mercenaries and the CIA snipers. On his part, Turkish writer Elkar Balk stressed in an article published on Sol Khabar website that the Justice and Development Party government possesses a political regional vision that depends on political Islam and is linked to US policies in the region, affirming that the party's vision of political Islam is considered purely American. The writer asserted Erdogan's government has played an effective role in the US plans in Syria and tolerated all dangers in order to play the role of direct organizer of this process. He added that this government's excessive preventive policy towards Syria is founded on the basis of political Islam. The writer added that the Justice and Development Party has given the green light to the armed terrorist groups to execute provocative operations and is working to launch a campaign of lies against Syria like the campaign launched by the USA in Iraq. He said the Erdogan's government is not in a position that enables it to look into the results of any possible war. The claims that the provocative operations are implemented by armed men or imperialist states in order to push Turkey to war are inaccurate, the Turkish writer pointed out, because the Justice and Development Party is the one that creates these provocative operations according to the war scenarios.
That was A Call for Justice, prepared and presented by Juhayna Hafiz. Radio Damascus presents Arab Civilization. A weekly program prepared and presented by Juhayna Hafiz.
The Orontes River Valley is considered one of the most fertile areas in Syria. It represents the main natural road that connects southern Syria with the northern parts and neighboring countries in two directions. It also constitutes the linking chain between coastal and internal plains and the Badia or the central desert. The modern and ancient cities situated on both sides of the river also indicate the important role it has played at the cultural, historical and economic levels. A lot of excavation works have been carried out in several sites, such as Tel el-Nabi Mend or ancient Qadish near Qatina Lake. Qadish was one of the strongest cities in the late Bronze Age. This site was documented in written sources. It is the site of the known battle that erupted between the Hittites and the Pharaohs, which ended with a peace agreement based on the marriage of the Hittite Hattusili's daughter to the Egyptian Pharaoh. Excavation works on Tel el-Nabi Mend Qadish site have disclosed the presence of magnificent architectural relics that date back to the formation battle, as well as to the other eras. The date of the site extends from the modern pottery age in the 6000 BC to the late Roman age in the 4th and 5th centuries BC. The animals' remnants abound in archaeological diggings in Syria, which reveal that man depended in his livelihood during the modern pottery era and all subsequent epochs till the Iron Age, at least on agriculture, meat and other products of sheep, livestock and pigs. The results of the studies conducted by archaeological missions offer details related to the method of food provisions in civilized societies. It was confirmed that economy in those areas in central Syria relied on animal livestock and their derivatives, including milk and wool, and their usages in dragging plows and carriages believed to have started during the 5th and 4000 BC, the period when people began to settle in some sites in central Syria. Providing the people who settled in cities with supplies was a process which involved a very different strategy in the way of getting food, whether this was obtained through local production or imports from other areas. The economic changes that occurred in the 5th and 4th 1000 BC had their role in paving the way before the inception of the initial cities at the beginning of the Bronze Age. The works of the archaeological missions in Tel Nebi Mend has added new information about man's lifestyle and the phases of his transition from hunting and assembling to a phase of getting settled, cultivating his own food and making tools, a stage that led to the emergence of the other civilizations.
That was a new edition of Arab Civilization broadcast from Radio Damascus.
This is Damascus Radio, the broadcasting service of the Syrian Arab Republic. Before we sign off with the national anthem, here is a final look at the news summary.
The foreign minister says in a statement that Syria welcomes Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's announcement at the Russian Federation Council on October the 10th on the necessity for having a mechanism of direct security communication between Syria and Turkey. Member of the Iranian Leadership Council, Qasem Sadiqi, expresses regret at Turkey's stand towards the events in Syria. Iraq's Prime Minister Nouri Maliki stresses the need to resolve the crisis in Syria through peaceful means. The Minister of State for Reconciliation Affairs, Dr. Ali Haidar, says that the project of returning the families of Al-Hafez city who fled their homes as a result of the fierce events is underway. The Syrian community in Jordan and the Jordanian Popular and Youth Forces stressed their support to Syria in the face of the global war waged against it. And the Lebanese Minister of Administrative Development, Mohammed Afneish, stresses the Lebanese resistance rights to possess any means of deterring the Israeli enemy.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of our transmission for tonight. Until we meet again tomorrow at the same time and on the same frequencies, we wish you all the best from Damascus Radio, the broadcasting service of the Syrian Arab Republic. Good night.